Welcome, everyone, to our great kickoff for CTN's Day of Equity. I will now turn it over to Sky Downing for some quick interruptions, or I'm sorry, Freudian slip, for some quick introductions, and I will share my screen, Sky. Thank
I
you
am
all.
I am absolutely known for my quick interruptions. Thank you, Becca. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Digital Inclusion Week 2024. Actually, we're well into it at this point on this fine Thursday. Thank you for joining us for our second annual Day of Equity event, a full day of webinar sessions held throughout the day. This year, however, we are starting with a bang. We have been gifted with the opportunity, thanks to sponsors such as Methodist Healthcare Ministries and Cook County of Illinois. We have been gifted with the opportunity to bring in a amazing keynote speaker who I am also very blessed to call a personal friend of many, many years. This woman has actually known me since I was a teenager. So it's been a long time, hasn't it,
Oh yeah,
Lindsay?
30 years. 30 years.
Holy moly. So here we are kicking off our Day of Equity event with a session entitled Authentic Leadership. And again, we thank you for joining us. We hope to see you throughout the day at the five remaining events. And without further ado, I want to dive right in because I really want to turn this over to Lyndsay and give her as much time as possible to share with us today. So it is my great honor to introduce to you Lyndsay Dowd, who is a speaker, a founder, an author, coach, podcast host, and internationally known disruptor. She is recognized as a top 10 business coach by Apple News and was the recipient of the 2023 Award for Innovation and Excellence, also named Business Coach of the Year. Lyndsay is a featured guest lecturer at Harvard University. She is an accomplished leader, decorated seller, and has successfully managed large, diverse, high-performing sales teams over the past 25 plus years. 23 of those years were spent climbing the ladder at IBM, and one of the greatest things that I hold in personal regard, as just being very proud of her for, was taking that leap in leaving IBM after, gosh, how many generations of family time there? A good deal of years, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Put in at IBM through multiple generations of her family working there. So she took the leap shortly after pandemic, or was it during that you switched gears and
During.
during? Yeah. Took the leap and created her own company, Heartbeat for Hire. She has devoted her career to transforming leadership through building irresistible culture, and I think you will find her irresistible as well. Modern leadership practices that get the best results from our teams. She's a thriving coach focused on sales, leadership, career, and culture. As I mentioned, she has been featured in Fortune Magazine, HR.com, Authority Magazine, Business Management Daily, Valiant CEO, and so many other publications, as well as being a two-time author. Congratulations on your latest publication that just released. She is author of Top Down Culture and a contributing author to a recent anthology called Voices of Women. She also hosts the top 5% globally ranked podcast, Heartbeat for Hire, and is a frequent guest speaker on other live and recorded shows. So without further ado, Lyndsay, with so much love, I turn this over to you and welcome you to our realm for the morning. So thank
Well,
you for
I
being here.
mean, with an intro like that, I feel like, I mean, it got me all choked up. So
Yeah.
I'm so thank you, Bunny. I call her Bunny for anybody that doesn't know that. Thank you, Bunny, for that beautiful intro, and thank you all for being with me today and for going on this journey. We're gonna have some fun. This is a really storytelling style of a keynote, and there are going to be some challenges that I want you to take on. So let's get right into it. I already heard my bio, but here we go. Here's what we're going to cover in this hour that we have together. And I have allotted some time for some questions. So I know Becca and Sky are going to be monitoring the chat and they will serve it up to me to keep me on track. So we are going to talk about power skills. And before I give away what those are, these are important. You're going to hear them throughout the entire keynote. So trust, we're going to talk about that as your currency. It's very, very important to have a successful organization that has a lot of trust. Psychological safety and recognition, why that's important, why we need to pay attention to it, why we need to create it. The importance of culture. Culture is like the fabric, the feeling of the organization you're in, why that works. One of my favorite topics, micromanagement and why it's not modern, and delegation as a power skill. So stay tuned, let's dig in, and let's start with a story. So I was a client executive at IBM, and I was managing a really, really big team of about 55 people who didn't directly report to me, but I was the quarterback for this team. And I had a huge quota, $150 million quota. And for those of you that aren't in sales, that just means this is what you have to hit in order to get paid really well. So it was a lot of responsibility, a lot of exposure, and I had a lot of eyes on me. And I had this new boss named Sherry. And Sherry I knew as a friend before, but I didn't know her as my boss. And part of what I was doing was I needed to present to her my plan. What was I going to do to figure out? I was covering one account. So, what was my plan for figuring out how I was going to cover this account, how I was going to get to that 150 million? So, I had this presentation and I presented to her about two-thirds of the way through. She stops me and she says, "Girl, I've got your back. Now fly." Oh my gosh. It took my breath away. It gave me goosebumps. It made me pause and say, oh my gosh, this is a leader who believes in me. If I fall down, she's got my back. This is cool. So I took that energy and I turned it to my team. And I said, all right, what haven't we tried? Who haven't we talked with? What haven't we done that could make us better, that could make us connect with more people? And my team, they had choices. They didn't have to work on just my account. They could go work anywhere they wanted. So it was really important to me that I create the most fun, the most lucrative, the most exciting environment for them to be in. And I tried to do that. And it worked. We closed the single largest deal that either of our companies had ever seen. And oh, by the way, this client of mine, we were also business partners and we were competitors. So we had, oh, and we were each other's clients. We had strings attached to everything we did, but we closed this deal. Huge, $23 million. And it changed the way we worked together as a team, as each other's clients, as partners. And our CEOs spoke regularly. And you heard Sky say, I was with IBM, which is a pretty big company. And this was a very large company. So both CEOs had a lot of visibility. So what all happened in this? So let's dig in. This was a great example of power skills. And if you are listening to this presentation, we don't call them soft skills. They are far too important to be called anything soft. We call them power skills. And what are they? Well, they're modern markers, modern leadership tenets. This is what modern leaders do. And I keep using that word modern because if I were to look at you all, which I cannot see your faces, but if I was to look at you all and ask you, who in this room has had a bad leader? My guess is close to 100% of you would raise your hands. That's at least what I see in most of the speeches that I give. And I'm seeing some chat, so I'm guessing I'm not wrong. But if I were to ask you, how many of you have had a great leader? You might not have as many hands raised. So, what are some of these power skills? So, trust, this is a huge one, and we're going to talk about that in the next story. Psychological safety, really, really important. Communication is a power skill. How do you do it? And when you fall down, what do you do to get back up? How do you talk about a failure you had and make people still endeared to you? Recognition and sharing the spotlight. This is such an easy one. If you are trying to change the tone on your team, if you are trying to get people inspired and engaged, this is the easiest place to start. By lifting others up and sharing the spotlight and shining the spotlight on other people, that makes you look good. And we're going to talk more about that. Vulnerability. This is a tough one for a lot of leaders. A lot of leaders mistake vulnerability to, I'm asking you to go stand naked at the company picnic on the lawn. No, vulnerability is a spectrum. And sometimes it's just sharing something like, you guys, I had an epic parenting fail this morning. My kid had a book report. I was supposed to bring it and I forgot. And now the kid's going to get a bad grade and it's my fault. Okay, everyone can relate to that. That's all we're doing. We're creating a moment for connection, an opportunity for us to say, I see you. You're not this person on a pedestal that is someone I can't talk to. You want to relate to your people and you want to relate to your leaders. So by being vulnerable, it makes you accessible. You don't have to share everything, but sharing that you're human or sharing a moment that you didn't do something so well and now you learned from it. Sharing that growth is really important. And delegation is such a good one. And we're going to get deep into that one later, but that's one of my favorite power skills. And don't mistake delegation for just getting stuff off your plate. It's way more than that. And there is so much goodness that comes with it. So at this point, I would ask you, are you ready for another story? But I'm just going to assume that you are. So here we go. Okay. This is a story of trust. And by the picture on the screen, I bet you can imagine it's not a good one. So I was running a pretty decent sized brand at IBM, and I was asked to speak. I was asked to represent my team at a meeting with our general manager. And so it was a leadership call. There was about a dozen of us on the call, and I was responsible for a really big part of the business. And Kareem was our general manager, and he started off the call, and I'm listening and I'm learning and I'm, watching everybody's faces. We're on Zoom. And I didn't understand something he said about my business. And I said, I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you said. Could you clarify that last point, Kareem? And Kareem's response was, how dare you? Are you crazy? You've just interrupted my flow. Do you have any idea what you're doing? What is wrong with you? Now you can imagine my response. I am embarrassed. I'm humiliated. I am scared. I'm so, so upset on the inside. And I held it together on the outside. And I only know this because I asked the leaders after the call, did I hold it together? How was my face? And they said, no, you were cool as a cucumber. We don't know how because that was terrible. And when I hung up that Zoom, I called my boss who wasn't on that call. And I told her what happened, and I was very, very upset. No, I was crying. Um, and I said to her, I've never been humiliated like that. And I don't understand what he was doing. I don't subscribe to that style of leadership. That was absolutely uncool. And she was so horrified. She called one of the other leaders who was on the call to corroborate what I said. Not that she didn't believe me. She just wanted to know, was it really as bad as I said? And the guy she called said it was everything she said and worse. It was horrific. And he needs to apologize to her. So they prompted Kareem to call me and apologize to me. And so several days later, I got a call and he said, oh, hi, Lyndsay. This is Kareem. Hi, Kareem. I understand I owe you an apology. Well, when someone opens with I understand versus I'm so sorry, it's already not off to a great start. And I said, okay. And he said, I just don't understand why you were interrupting me. And I kind of went, well, you were talking about my business and I just didn't understand what your point was. And he said, oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. But do you know what I was trying to do? And I said, I really don't. What were you trying to do? I was trying to set a trap for Catherine because I need to fire her and I wanted her to hang herself. And you got in the way by interrupting my flow. Oh my gosh. This is like the worst leadership example around. This is so bad. No one should ever set a trap for someone. And if you're an authentic leader and someone is not meeting the goals and the requirements that you've set in that job, have a conversation, have the guts to do it right. But this is not how you do it. Well, you can imagine my trust of him was shattered. I would never trust him again. And I would always be very leery of him. But what he didn't realize was his behavior shattered the trust of all of the leaders on the team. And bit by bit, we all started to exit the business. It was a real crying shame where he could have done so many things instead. But what he chose to do was really, really horrific. And I'm told he is still leading the same way today. So there are still people that don't mind that style of leadership. I, for one, think it's terrible and would recommend everyone in this room never be like Kareem. Okay, so what did we learn there? Well, we learned your words have weight. And when you build trust, your people perform. And I'm going to give you so many examples of building trust in just a moment. Another thing you need to remember if you become a leader is that your title doesn't earn you trust. You have to do that on your own. And just because you have power doesn't mean that people are just going to respond in kind. You need to meet your people where they are. And part of how you do that is through one-on-ones. So any leader that I talk to that says, oh, I don't have time for one-on-ones, I'm just so busy, you are in the wrong role. You have to make time to get to know your people. You have to ask them questions. You have to ask them, what's your family life like? Do you have a partner? Do you have any pets? Do you have children? What kinds of things do you need to be successful? These are conversations that happen outside of your regular business conversations. And the reason you have to do this is because you can't advocate for your people if you don't know what they need. And if you don't understand their goals, and if you don't understand what they're really good at, take the time to ask. So we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. And you never know what's going on in people's lives. So it's so important that you understand that, because when you're in a position that you can support them, you are going to be perceived as a better leader. And the favorite question that I always encourage leaders to ask, and I've done this, it's a humbling question because you are admitting you don't know everything. But ask, how can I be the best leader for you? Everyone's going to give you a different answer. And that's based on tenure. It's based on age. It's based on their personal goals. It's based on their career goals. And that's a good thing for you to know. But when everybody across the organization is asking that question, you could tap any leader on the shoulder at any time and say, what's going on your team? And they'll be able to say, well, so-and-so is a flight risk. So-and-so needs more coaching. So-and-so needs a mentor. But isn't that an empowering position for you to be in because you know what your people need? So let me give you a challenge. Okay, here we go. I got to move this so I can see it because I got stuff in the way. So this is a power skills challenge. So which power skill will make the biggest impact on your team and why? So think about that for yourself. And also, what's one way you can build trust across your organization? There's tons of ways to do this. So think about this. And as we go through these stories, I hope they're going to resonate with you and you can take some notes and take these things away because I want this to be actionable. I want you to be able to take this and say, gosh, I got some good tools that I can use to create a better environment with my team. And the last thing I'm going to say on this before I go to the next story is even if you are not a leader with HR responsibility, you have an opportunity to lead. And like I told you in the first story, I wasn't their boss, but I was the quarterback of that team. And I stepped up and I gave them space to do the jobs they were hired for. That is being a leader, and you all have that opportunity. So seize it, run after it, do it. Okay, ready for another story? I'll assume you're saying yes. Okay, here's a story of psychological safety. So this is a story that I was managing an organization. It was totally the island of misfit toys. We had so many people from different parts of the business who absolutely did not care what the other parts sold. A lot of them came in through acquisitions. They were all responsible for different parts of the business. And maybe you've been on these teams where people are coming from different places and they don't really care about what you do. It's irrelevant to their mission, or so they thought. Well, that was the tone in this situation. And so I knew that if I could get my team to care about each other, to listen to each other, to think about what you're doing could help me, we would do better. And so when I first started managing this team, we were on Zoom. A lot of it was pre-pandemic and into the pandemic. And there was a woman named Emma. And when I first started, Emma wouldn't get on camera. None of you are on camera, by the way. So if you want to come on camera, I sure would love to see your faces. But Emma wouldn't come on camera. And a few weeks in, she started to come on camera. And then she started to put on a little makeup and she started to do her hair and she started to lean in a little more and she started to engage on a bigger way or in a bigger way. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, she called me and said, "Hey, I've been watching you." I said, "Oh." She said, "Yeah, I thought you were going to come in and just say, there's a new sheriff in town. It's my way or the highway. This is what we're going to do." And she said, "But you've given us a lot of space and you really helped us to step into our roles and you're giving us autonomy that we haven't had before. And I really admire it. And I wanted to ask you a question." And I said, "Sure. What's the question?" She said, "Well, there's someone on our team. Her name is PJ, and she's struggling. And I want to know, could I mentor her?" Well, any leader who hears these words is very excited by the prospect of one of their better reps saying, "I want to mentor someone else." So I said, "Oh my gosh, Emma, that's amazing. Yeah, I would love you to do that. But let's the three of us talk to her first and find out what's really going on." So we set up a call with PJ, and PJ had come over from marketing. So in any big corporation, very often there'll be a big shuffle where if they're phasing out one team, they'll move people over. And that was the case with PJ. But PJ was moved over to a sales team, and nobody told her what her job was supposed to be. So the first thing she said was, "Lyndsay, I don't understand my job." And I said, "Okay, well, I've got a place to start." So Emma and I started telling her, these are the things you can say. These are your clients. These are your business partners. This is your safe space to engage. These are the kinds of things you can do. This is why people would call you. And she's like, "Oh, I can say those things. I can do those things. Yeah. And if you fall down, we've got your back." Well, PJ took that and ran. And week after week, Emma would tell me, "Linz, she's getting it. She's doing really, really well. She's actually closing things." And to give you perspective of how bad PJ was doing when she joined, anyone who's ever been in sales knows if you put a forecast in, you never put zero. Every good salesperson knows how to lie a little. You've got to pad it just a smidge just to make it look like you're doing some work. But PJ was putting up zeros. It was bad. So this gave her some wind in her sails. And in 6 short months, PJ became my top performer. But Emma became incredibly valuable to me. And Emma started reading the rest of the team. She started seeing things that I didn't know because she knew these people better than I did. And after some time, I asked her, I said, "Emma, has anyone ever asked you if you want to be a manager?" And she said, "Lyndsay, I would love to be a manager, but no one has ever asked me." And I said, "Well, rest assured, the next opportunity that I have, I'm going to make you a manager." And I did. And Emma became one of my absolute favorite managers I would ever work with. She is still managing teams to this day. She is still crushing it, and she is absolutely leading with heart. So let's talk about what happened there. So trust, we built a lot of it, a lot of it. Emma slowly began to trust me. And then she trusted me implicitly, and PJ did as well. But I created this space of psychological safety. I let them understand it was safe for them to fail. We were going to learn stuff. And that's really important because when your people feel safe, they create new best practices. And we're going to talk a lot about that in a little bit. But I allowed for failure. I told her I had her back. And so she knew if she fell down, and she did a couple of times, she said things that really were out of where she should be. And we corrected it and I covered her and it was okay. And whoever she said that to, they were pretty understanding because they understood she was new to the role. But the other thing I didn't tell you was that I was recognizing both of them throughout this entire time. Both Emma for her willingness to step up and mentor PJ, and of course, PJ for doing things she had never done before, for closing deals she couldn't because she didn't know how. And what that did was it made other people raise their hand and say, well, I could do something. I'd like to volunteer. I'd like to engage some more. And we created this really infectious spirit on our team where people were really kind of standing up and saying, I want the spotlight on me. I want to do something worth sharing. So it was a really cool moment. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, culture. Now, culture is an interesting one. Culture is hard to describe because it's a feeling. It's the spirit that you feel when you are part of an organization or part of a company. And when you ask someone, do you like your job? Are you happy in your job? Most of the time, their answer is going to be directly how they feel about their boss. But culture can be really infectious. And when it's good, it's really, really good. So this is one of those good stories. So I had a boss, her name was Adriana, and she promoted me twice. She's one of my absolute favorite leaders. She did incredible, incredible things that I had never seen before. One example was she invited our HR partner to one of our meetings. And I said, why are you inviting him? Not that I objected, I just really didn't understand why. And she said, well, Lyndsay, how can Marshawn help us if he doesn't know our people? And everything he does will be reactive if he's not part of our team. Well, duh. That was a no-brainer. Like I couldn't believe no other leader had ever thought of that I worked for. That was just something that I would adopt with every team moving forward. I thought that was really, really smart. But let me tell you some of the things Adriana did. So the first time she promoted me, she said, how do you want to run the business? Me? You're asking me? She's like, well, yeah, you've been doing it longer than I have. You know more than I do about your business. So tell me, what do you want to do? Oh my gosh, do you know my delight in hearing that? So I turned around, went to my managers, and I said, team, we've got an opportunity. What do we want to do that we've never done before? And that incredible safety she provided for me was what I gave to all of my managers and all of my team across the board. And this created this environment where everyone felt excited. They felt safe. They felt seen. It was really, really cool. And every manager on her team became incredibly loyal to her. And we crushed our numbers over and over and over again. Every department that reported up to her was firing on all cylinders. And it was because we were devoted to her. We had space to do the jobs we were hired for. And we had this incredible spirit. We got to know each other. We became invested in each other. We were curious about each other. And when a leader can provide the foundation for building culture like that, it is so, so good. And guys, when your culture is good, your people perform. It's that simple. If you create a space of intimidation and fear and belittling, rest assured, your people will not engage. They will not come on camera. They will not raise their hands, and they will not perform at their best. And I have a good example of that in a little bit. So, culture is not free beer on Fridays and ping pong tables. Those are perks. We can't mistake perks for culture. And if you go and buy your people a bunch of swag, backpacks, t-shirts, hats, koozies, whatever, if they're not happy where they are, and if they don't feel joy and inspiration for the company they're a part of, that's going straight to Goodwill. Positive culture breeds loyalty. And there is no loyalty like I had anymore. I know I'm a bit of a dinosaur being at one company for 23 years. That kind of tenure does not exist. Nowadays, it's much more common for people to job hop and go other places. So, my perspective on this is in the time you're with me, I want your time to be the best time possible. I know I can't keep you forever. But if you're going to be with me, I want this to be a moment that you are going to shine. I want you to feel supported, engaged, and absolutely inspired. So we already said, do you like your job? That answer is usually a commentary about their boss. And we talked a little bit about vulnerability before. One of the things Adriana was so good at was sharing about her kids and sharing about things that she learned and things that she did wrong. And because she was so human and so accessible, we were able to create indelible, incredibly deep friendships. And those really are meaningful. I know a lot of people say, well, business is business, personal is personal. I'm sorry, you spend 60% of your life or more in your work environment. It's good to have friends where you work. It's good to be invested in what you're working on. And anybody that tells you that work is not personal, I'm sorry, go tell them to jump off a very high bridge because it is personal. This is your blood, sweat, and tears. It's your energy. It's everything that you are doing. You're pouring into this company. So, yes, it's very personal. And culture is personal. Connections, communication, collaboration. This is all functions of culture. You want to create the best culture for yourself, for your teams, and whether you are a leader or not, you have an opportunity to contribute to that. So make sure your contributions are good. Okay, challenge time. So, what's a way you can demonstrate psychological safety? What's a way you can say to your organization that you believe in them? And if you're not a people leader, how can you say it to a colleague? Hey, you've got this. You're really great at this. I listened to you on that last call. You've got this. Go get it. Or choose or do both of these. I prefer both. But do your values align with your current culture? And would your employees agree? So if you are a leader, that mission statement that you created at the inception of forming your company, is that still true? Is that still what people would say about you? And if you were to ask everyone in your organization, do they even know what that mission is? It's a really good litmus test. Ask them, because if they don't know it, we've got some work to do. We want to fix that culture and we want people to love where they work. Okay, story time. Here's a story. This is a bad one about micromanagement. So, as Sky told you, I spent 23 years at IBM and I was ready for a change. She did say I had a generational thing happening at IBM. And what she meant by that was my family put in over 100 years at IBM. So, my husband, my father, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law all did incredible years at IBM. And we had a really good experience. But I was ready for a change. So, a company sought me out and said, would you come and manage a sales team for us? And I said, okay. So I packed up my big blue legacy and off I went. And in a very short amount of time, my boss, Melinda, started to show her true colors. And she really wanted a micromanager. And if you've been listening to any of what I've said before, you probably think, that's not Lyndsay. Yeah, I'm not a micromanager and I never could be. And I kept challenging her and would say, if you need me to know all of the details of all of these deals and all of these projects, what do you need the reps for? Well, she didn't like that. But what Melinda was lacking was a whole treasure trove of power skills. She had very limited EQ, which she admitted she had none, which I would say is true. So what happened during the time I was working with Melinda? I'll give you one rotten story. I had to present our reports to our senior leaders, and at the end of the call, Melinda says to me, "This is once everyone's hung up." She goes, "I don't like how you did that. You weren't good. You didn't represent yourself well. You didn't represent the company well. You got to do better next time." How do you think I did next time? I sucked. And the reason why, I was so worried about the words coming out of my mouth. I was so afraid that I was going to screw up. I wasn't relying on my intuition, my sense of humor, my ability to read people. All of that was shoved in the back because I had to focus on everything coming out of my mouth. So when you take away somebody's shine and you take away somebody's power and you reduce it to a micromanagement, I say this, you do this, you will never inspire your people. You will never get the best out of them. And what I didn't tell you is after 6 months of working under this wonderful leadership style, Melinda fired me and I was gutted. I thought I was the only executive that would ever be fired on earth. I had a scarlet letter. I thought nobody would ever want to work with me again. And 3 years later, I'm okay. I'm right here with you. So, yes, you can come back from hardship, you can come back from failure. But what this also did was it gave me immense fuel to start Heartbeat for Hire. It gave me such an urgency to teach what leadership is not and what good leadership is. And this was a beautiful example of the kind of leadership you don't want to emulate. So, micromanagement never inspired anyone. Think about your style. Are you asking people every detail of what they're doing, or are you giving them space to do the jobs they were hired for? And micromanagement is never going to motivate people to hit their number. They will do the bare minimum, they will mail it in, and it will always just be just a job. And micromanagement is one heck of an insecure leadership style. It basically is saying, well, the only way I know how to do this is by managing every part of the process that you're in. You're not relying on any of your skill set, any of your power skills, any of your ability to see greatness in others. You're just being very transactional. And as I demonstrated or illustrated to you from the story a moment ago, you're not going to learn when you're in a corner. You're not going to get better. You're only going to get more anemic, more afraid, and you're going to doubt yourself. And it will dull anyone's shine if you continue to do that. And your team will never go above and beyond for you. They will always just do the bare minimum of what they need to do to get you off their case. And the last thing I'll say about this is don't be the star of somebody's bad memory. When you become a leader, you become everyone's dinner conversation. You are the topic. Make sure that topic is a good one. Okay, ready to talk about delegation? This is a good one. So if you remember back when I was talking about Emma and PJ, that was my team, the Island of Misfit Toys. I needed them to come together. And so I started something which I thought might work. And I started a storytelling program. The storytelling program was basically, I'm going to make everyone on this team tell a story about what it is they sell. Now, you could do this with anything, but everybody, whether you believe it or not, you are all sellers. You probably are saying to yourself, I'm not a seller. I'm not in sales. I don't want to talk like that. I don't want to sound like that. Salespeople are like used car people. Hey, listen, if you want someone to understand your opinion, if you want your child to eat their vegetables, if you want, to win somebody over on something you're passionate about, you're selling. So everybody sells. But this is a story of storytelling and delegation. So in this case, I said everybody needs to start to figure out a way to tell a story about what it is you sell. You are not going to use acronyms. You're not going to use jargon. You are going to tell this story like you are talking to my retired school teacher mother. Now, this is a challenge, especially for people in tech. However, they did it. So we started using these stories on our team calls. And what started to happen was Betsy told the story first, and Betsy told the story about what it is she sold. And I could see in the Zoom light bulbs going off. That's what that does? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I've got to introduce you to my client because they need that. They're not getting it from what I sell, and I didn't even know where to point them. This is great. So all of a sudden, people are connecting. They're talking to each other. They're collaborating. But even more, they're saying, Betsy, you did a really good job on that last story. Will you tell me how you did it? Will you tell me the kinds of things that you were planning when you were building your story? So the next week, Connor did it. Connor did a great job telling his same reaction. Everybody's going, oh my gosh, I didn't know that it did that. That's really cool. So every week, we're doing 2 stories, and it's starting to grow and everyone's starting to get it. And it's really helping our sales. But I recognized we had an opportunity. And I said, I think we need to turn this external. So we turned this into a webinar, and we started saying, okay, we're going to start telling these stories to our business partners and to all of the other reps that are selling this stuff. And now I'm getting calls from business partners who are saying, Linz, I'm so glad you started doing this. I didn't know that that product did that. That's going to be the keystone for my strategy. This is fantastic. So what was happening was I wasn't delivering these stories. My team was delivering these stories. And I let them run it with me. I let them check it with me or other leaders on the team. But I wanted them to have a chance to shine. It looked good on them. And it made such an incredible impact, but it exposed them to more leaders. It exposed them to more people. It exposed them to more business partners, and it made them look good. So delegation, what I was doing there was getting everybody involved, but I also recognized everybody needed to have some skin in the game. And it wasn't just taking things off my plate because I didn't have to do any of this stuff. Most of my other leaders, my peers, they didn't know what I was doing. They thought it was crazy town over where Dowd was. And I called my team Mavericks and Hustlers. I wanted them to think differently about themselves. I wanted them to be really, really proud of what they were doing. And so they took that and they ran with it. And I put a lot of trust in them because they were getting up on a stage and talking about something. And a lot of them were super uncomfortable doing it, but they did it and they conquered it. And it fed the energy. It fed everybody to be better, to do better. So by this delegation, we did so many things, but I also made it safe for people. I let them practice and I wanted them to be their best. I wanted them to shine. And it really made a huge impact on our numbers. So think about the ways that you can delegate, what kinds of things you can delegate, and one very, very important rule when you delegate. If you've been assigned something and you delegate it to someone else, that is still your project. If that person fails, you will never throw them under the bus, ever. You take the blame for that moment because it's yours. So please, if you delegate it, you still own it. Okay, so what did we learn? Micromanagement. Recognize your own approach and promise me you will never do this. You are so much better than any micromanager. And delegation. Think differently. What can you share with your team and how can you shine the spotlight on them? Okay, we're getting to the end of this and I want to leave some room for questions, but so what do I do? When you need help with your power skills and you need a zhuzh, I'm obviously a keynote speaker. I'd love you to come listen to my podcast. I do have a couple of books that Sky already talked about. This is the first, well, it's the second one, Voices of Women. It's an anthology. There's 22 authors. I am one of them. And this is my first book, Top Down Culture. It's a lot of the stories you just heard and many, many more. And then I also do LinkedIn workshops. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Insta. I'm on all the things. The only thing I'm not on is on X, but please just reach out. Tell me where you tell me where you came from and that you met me here. Would love to really continue to build the relationship I've got with CTN. And so let's wrap it up with a summary. So modern leaders leverage power skills. Think about your power skills and where you can use them. Trust is your currency. You know how quickly trust can be shattered. It's a hard thing to come back from when you do, but it is possible. You have to build that trust with your teams. Psychological safety is the foundation of everything you do. And when you create it, your people can shine. And leverage recognition. That's the easiest way to start to create that psychological safety. Culture is what makes your people loyal. And if you don't have a great culture in your environment, create it for your team. You are a big part of that. Micromanagement never inspired anyone. And use those power skills of delegation. But lastly, be the leader you always wish you had. Becca, do we have any questions?
I've been monitoring the chat and we have some great reactions.
Oh, good. Tell me.
Everyone, we purposefully are allowing time for Q&A. It would be wonderful. What's on your mind right now? Please chime in for Lyndsay.
And if you want to come on camera, I am happy to stop sharing. I'd love to see your faces. I hope this was good for you.
Yeah, I'm the only person doing what I do for the community council of South Central Texas, like throughout the state. I'm really like trying to think how I can apply some of this stuff when I'm the only person and I don't work with anybody. So other
Well,
than
I
the
bet you
people
do
I
work
work
with
in these
somebody.
communities,
I bet you do work with somebody. You have clients, you have a community of people that you work with, and how you show up to them is important. So by lifting them up and inviting them into your space, that's how you can be a leader, Adam.
and you're absolutely right. And I've done that, and I have a really strong connection with people in those communities. They contact me and ask me questions, and I give support to them and anything that they need. And if I can do it, I show up and I do it, and
Awesome.
I really enjoy it.
Good. Well, I hope something I said gave you a little bit of fire to continue to do that because how you're viewed is going to be really important. And it sounds like you've built a really great community of people that trust you and lean on you.
Well,
So
everything
that's
you were talking about was very familiar to me, so it was good to
good.
hear it from somebody else.
Yes. Love hearing that.
We see some other faces, and there was certainly chatter about the power of that a boss has. There was chatter about micromanagement. I would love to give other folks a chance to chime in.
I think the words that you spoke today were very profound because sometimes people don't have the words or they don't have the things to describe what's going on or to handle them. So the words that you gave about micromanaging and everything like that, just I'm better able to recognize and speak on what's going on and to make those adjustments and to work on how to phrase those things myself. So I'm really grateful because it's really good information, especially knowing that sometimes you're in a situation where you don't have the best leadership, or if you're in an organization where things are going on, you can be your own advocate and you can be the leader, even if you don't think you are, and start a movement of creating that trust with the ones around you so that you can build that foundation. So that was really great. Thank you, Lyndsay.
Oh, you're welcome, Lakeisha, and you're spot on. And don't forget, we also manage up. So how you show up to those leaders and how you step up really matters. So you have more power than you think.
And we have a question from Carrie.
Carrie, would love to
Hey,
hear it.
this is such great insights. And I have a question. One of the things that struck me when you mentioned vulnerability as a power skill, and this is probably in your book, but can you talk a little bit about the intersection of supporting vulnerability with folks for whom vulnerability is not seen as valuable and actually, especially around females and people from cultures where vulnerability is seen as a sign of weakness? I know this is
Yeah,
probably a longer chat, but
no, I
maybe a
love that
little
you
bit
brought
more
that
about
up.
that.
I love that you brought that up, and you're right. I think people view vulnerability as weakness, but what I'm telling you right now, and I've lived this, I've seen this, I've talked to really big audiences, when you are vulnerable and you share your growth. So I'm speaking to you today. I've been fired. You all could be like, she's a hack. She was fired. But I showed you, or at least I hope you saw, I came out of that really rotten time and I made something of myself. And when you walk away from this, you're not being like, I listened to this woman and she got fired. Like I shared something vulnerable, but the point that we emphasized was everything we've done with it since. And you don't have to share everything, but sharing some human things, dip your toe in the water, try. And you can say, has anybody made baked mac and cheese? Because I made it last night and it was terrible and it's overbaked or whatever. Okay, that's funny. It's relatable. And it's a moment where people can go, yep, been there, screwed that up, but I have a recipe and I can help. It doesn't have to be something huge about your career. It doesn't have to be something massive about, connecting with your people. Start small. But those little moments are moments where people are going to be like, oh, yeah, this was fun. My boss totally, she's a bad cook, but I'm going to help her. That's okay. It's okay. And we're human. There's no longer this, I only come to work as my work self anymore. We show up as my friend Joanna Lohman. She's a former professional soccer player. She coined this term professional, and it's the cross between personal and professional. And sharing a little bit of yourself. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, it says, I love wiener dogs. Here, I have one right here. Oh, there she is. That's Poppy Long Sausage. It also says I'm a mother of twins. And the amount of people that connect with me on those two things when I meet them for the first time is huge. And you know why? Because it's a softball. It's easy. It's easy entry in. They're not asking me anything hard. I already love this. So it's easy to talk about. So think about it that way. I hope that helped a little, Carrie. Cool.
Yes, thank you. It did. It's something that's on my mind a lot. It's also something that kind of overlays the power dynamic because in a team, it's often easier for the people at the top of a team to be vulnerable than the people who are working and collaborating amongst each other in a different place. So I do think about that. I love the advice about small vulnerabilities, though. That's terrific. That's
Yeah,
really
baby
great advice.
steps. Well, and as you do it, you're going to get more comfortable with it, and people are going to share back. And when that sharing happens, you're creating that safe space. You're creating that rapport. And it's a cool way to live. It's a cool way to show up. Shannon.
Hi there. Thank you for this. This was really helpful. I'm kind of in your space. So I do culture work as well. And I just love I was hanging on every word and your Amazon books in my cart. I have a question for you. Oftentimes when I work with my clients or talk with people who are leaders, the question of multi-generational communication comes up. And especially when you layer on top of that asynchronous working, right? So it's kind of a double. And I don't know precisely what the question is here, other than when you think about the power skills, and I'm sure we just got a couple of them of many that you list in your books, how would you say a leader should approach a situation where accountability, it becomes an
Yeah.
issue, and retaining someone so they don't jump ship?
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
I got a few nuggets for you. So first, you're right. We've never had this many generations in the workforce at once, and there are gross misconceptions about the older and the youngest. And I think it's so important to meet people where they are, and that's why that question of how can I be the best leader for you is so important because people need different things. So a lot of the younger generation, they need feedback. They thrive on it. They really are hungry for it. And some of the older, saltier, blue-haired folks like myself, which you can't see, would maybe be like, I don't need feedback. I just need to tell me what I need to do, and I'm gonna freaking do it. So you have a very different approach and a different style, but we can learn from each other. And part of this whole like sharing recognition, sharing approaches helps people learn. And the biggest struggle that I see is a lot of the youngest don't understand protocol. They don't understand if something's wrong, I'm going straight to the CEO. Don't do that. That's not a good look. So we want to make sure as a leader, we're helping them understand what a normal grievance, how it would be handled, and say, hey, listen, I think you're upset about something. I want to talk about it. And I want to tell you how we normally handle this because you going to the CEO is going to look bad on us both. And it's going to say that you're upset and I didn't handle it right. And I want to meet you where you are. I want to figure out what you need and support you in the ways that I can. And maybe that's extra education. Maybe that's pairing you with another person on the team who's been here a little longer. Maybe it's just you signing up for some more courses. I mean, there's a whole lot we can do with that. But meeting people where they are is kind of the thread across it all. And everybody's going to need different stuff. And that's just normal. So everybody needs different stuff no matter how old you are. And don't perpetuate the whole they're so lazy because it was done to us and we didn't like that. And, just don't do that. Tell people that they're great. Let them shine because they probably are. And they just don't necessarily know all the same things you do because you've been at it longer.
I'm going to jump in and be the bad guy for the sake of our time today. We do want to leave some time for our concluding comments. I first want to thank Lyndsay But I also would like to remind everyone that we have giveaways. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly before we have our concluding comments. And I just want to show you what CTN course we're giving away today. Can you see my screen with the course? We are giving away our online course, Managing Digital Navigators, because, hey, let's just pile on with some of those good managing strategies and keep up the energy from Lyndsay. This online course covers the things that you see, specifically to managing digital navigators, though, in our field, how to set up a program, how to recruit digital navigators, but also in the course of managing and supervising them, how can you best support them to go out and do the crucial work that they do? And so we would like to offer this course. I'm going to stop my share. We picked at random a few folks, and we will follow up with you for your free enrollment, but please confirm that you're here. Is Sherry Brown here? Sherry?
I am here.
You win. I'm going to follow up with you.
Super. That's awesome. Appreciate it. I love everything that was said.
We will follow up with you. How about Gerardo Puente?
I'm here.
Congratulations. And how about Tiffany Oakley?
I'm here.
Okay. Congratulations to you all. And before we conclude, you are invited to the rest of the exciting webinars that we have today. A special thanks to Lyndsay. I would like to turn it back over to our director, Sky.
Thank you so much, Becca and Lyndsay. Thank you, love. This is just one of the many reasons that I love you so dearly and appreciate the heck out of you. I do want to close by saying that in our industry, I feel like a broken record with this sometimes, but we speak all the time in our landscape about meeting our clients where they are at, meeting people where they are at. We serve the underserved, we serve the under-resourced, the marginalized. And, you know, it's so important that we meet them where they're at. But here at CTN, here at CTN, we really talk about meeting our partners where they are at, and we talk about meeting each other as a workforce where we are at each day. We perform mental health check-ins in our meetings. We truly love on and support each other. And I will just say that, you know, meeting someone where they are at is truly defined by engaging with them on a level to where you truly understand why they're standing in front of you in this moment. What are their needs? Not what you perceive their needs to be, but what their needs actually are, and understand the skills and the knowledge and experience that brought them to the space that they are today. So you hit the nail on the head, hit the ball out of the park, total home run. Thank you, Lyndsay, so much. So much. As Becca said, please feel free to join us at any of the remaining webinars today, all focused on different aspects of digital inclusion and equity work, from culturally proficient training to AI and much more. We do hope to see you throughout the day. Please link up with Lyndsay Dowd on LinkedIn. She is so approachable and communicable. So any further questions you have for her, you can reach out to her on LinkedIn or come through us. We'll be happy to forward those to her.